to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 120. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
but that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today we're talking to Sandy. Nussbaum gear. Oh gosh. Oh no, I had it. Nussbaum. Tell me the second half
Gearsick.
again. Gearsick, there we go, is the owner of Easy Dis by Instant Impressions Travel Services, a Disney earmarked travel agency. A woman-owned business owner, she took her passion and made it daily life when opening the agency 16 years ago. Her personal mantra is, the greatest souvenir I ever bought was the memories I made with my family. Ooh, that's a good mantra.
Oh, that is good.
How long did it take you to
Wow.
come up with that? Welcome, by the way.
Thank you. It probably came up after the first time my daughter came up with her travel mantra for us, which is, it's not a vacation unless you think you're going to die at least once.
Whoa. There's
I
got
think
to be
we
a story
travel
behind that.
differently. What age was she when she came up with that?
She was somewhere in the 14 to 16-year-old
Okay,
age.
there it is.
I
was
believe
expecting
it
a
was
teenager.
after our rib boat trip out into the fjords where we both hung on for dear life, and we had been ziplining, we've been whitewater rafting, and if you know me at all, I am so not an adventurous person. So
Really?
how we end up on these excursions is always kind of the joke that when we travel, I put us into situations that at home I would look at her and say, are you crazy? There's no way we're doing that.
That's fantastic. I love that. Oh, man.
Well, I'm curious. You in the bio, Cheryl mentioned that you're a Disney earmark organization. What does that mean?
So we are a travel agency, but we are different than other travel agencies because we only book Disney destinations. And people are surprised. Disney is so much more than the theme parks. They have a Hawaii resort, a Vero Beach, a Hilton Head resort. They have the cruise ship. They have theme parks around the world. And then they have Adventures by Disney, which are guided tours to bucket list destinations all around the world that don't touch on a Disney theme park. They're about the storytelling and the exclusive access in the trip. So we only book those trips. An earmarked agency is a ranking that we've earned by Disney for our number of years in business. It's kind of like their good housekeeping seal of approval. So we are a ranked agency by Disney.
That is
So
fantastic.
we are not Disney employees or a Disney cast. We always disclaim that. We are independently
gotcha.
owned.
Sure.
Gotcha.
But I would assume you are a big Disney fan.
I am a big Disney fan. Always have
She was
been
indifferent.
since I was a young child, which is what took my love into letting it be something that I get to do day in and day out.
That's
I
very
love
cool.
that. Oh, man. I'm so excited to talk to you. This is going to be great. Also, you're probably going to need to employ my sister because she's a big Disney fan. But so by the end of this, we'll get her a job. It'll be great.
That's
It'll be
perfect.
great.
We actually have a team of agents located all around the country, and we deal with
Really?
clients literally around the world. It's one of the great
Wow.
things that you couldn't do 30 years ago, but now with the internet, we really do deal with people everywhere.
Nice. Oh, that's so great.
That is cool.
love it.
So I have a question that has been in the back of my mind for a while, and because you're an East Coast person, yes?
I am. I'm a Jersey girl.
Awesome.
But I can pump my own gas. I'll put that disclaimer out there.
We are, both Cheryl and I are on the West Coast.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think I've observed, and I would love to get your perspective on it, is when, and I don't know if it's just East Coast or just not the West Coast,
Okay.
but when people talk about going to a Disney park that's in Florida, they talk about going to Disney as opposed to saying Disney World.
So
Is that
as a true Disney girl, I will tell you that I typically refer to it as Walt Disney World.
Oh,
So-
okay.
Oh, so you go proper.
Well,
with the-
California, as you know, is Disneyland. It was the first part.
Right.
Mhm.
When
Yep.
they built in Florida, it was named Disney World. Walt
Oh, okay.
passed during the building just before the opening. And that's when his brother Roy changed the name to honor him. So making sure that we put his name at the beginning is paying honor to the man that started it all.
Oh,
Got
that's
it.
But I
cool.
will tell you
didn't
that
know
we have clients that call us all the time that say, I want to go to Disneyland, and they mean Florida, or they just say Disney, but they mean Florida or California. It's one of those things. It didn't take me many months in the industry to learn to always clarify with people, you mean the one in California, or you mean the one in Florida? The average
Oh my
person
gosh.
doesn't know the difference.
Mm.
Oh, interesting.
That's
Huh.
surprising to me. I mean, I know like it probably depends on where you're at geographically for which one you automatically think of. Like for me, I automatically think of California because,
Mhm.
you know, I'm in Seattle, but I would never mistake the two. So that's really interesting.
I think because Disneyland is the original park and it's the land of Disney, that people just
Mhm.
don't even give thought to it having different names in some cases.
Yeah.
Sure.
Which
Which
probably
really interesting.
Real diehard Disney fans are cringing as I say it, but as I said, we get those kind of calls
Yeah.
all the time where people don't know the difference between where it is. They know which state they want to go to, but they don't necessarily know the proper name for where they're heading.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Sure.
Well, that's wise of you to clarify that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Sandy, we have a set of 3 questions that we like to ask all of our guests. And the first one is, why do you travel?
I travel to see the world, to have new experiences, and to make those memories.
Love that.
And so I'm assuming that you do travel not just to Disney parks. You mentioned that your company will do a whole bunch of places that aren't even connected there. So you do a lot of the travel that you book to experience to be able to talk to your clients, I assume?
We do, and that's one of the reasons that we're exclusive to Disney, is we want to be able to give people that firsthand knowledge. So
Yeah.
while I say we travel where the mouse takes us, and he's really good to us. I have been to the Hawaii property. I've been to the Vero Beach
Okay.
property, the Hilton Head property. I've been to Disneyland probably 24 times. I've been to Walt Disney World hundreds of times. I've taken 22 Disney cruises that are Caribbean,
Wow.
Bahamian, Alaska, Norway, Spain, and Italy. And then I've traveled with that adventure division that I was talking about. And with them, I have been to Italy, Peru, Costa Rica, the Rhine River. I've done New York City and Southern California with them as well. I'm heading to Wyoming with
Wow.
them later this year. And I'll be going
Interesting.
down the Danube in Budapest in the fall. So even though I only travel with Disney, really, the world is open to me.
Oh, I love that.
That is
Oh, man.
very
Okay,
exciting.
I am curious, where in Wyoming?
It is, the trip starts in Jackson Hole,
Okay.
and we go to Yellowstone and end in Brooks Lake Lodge. And that is one of those
Oh,
adventures
great.
by Disney. So they curate
Nice.
these phenomenal experiences. They have the U.S. departures and then all these international ones. So
Wow.
my list of, kind of like you, my list of where I want to go grows every year.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out the secret to making the money tree grow quicker or getting the right lottery numbers, but I'm desperate for either one.
I hear you on that one. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
We keep waiting for like an anonymous rich benefactor to just like present themselves to send us places, but
Yeah.
so far it has not happened.
No, it's like, come on, you want us to go to cool places for our podcast, right? So you want to pay for that? And
Yeah.
no one's taken us up on it yet. Weird.
It's really odd.
So the second question, Sandy, is what type of traveler are you?
My family teases me, I'm a last minute traveler. So typically that load of laundry that I need to pack is going in the dryer at 4:00 in the morning for the 6:00 flight.
Oh, wow.
I am definitely, I shouldn't admit this out loud, I don't know that I have ever made it to the airport 2 hours prior to a flight. I am definitely have my TSA pre-check and go running through and make it work. And unless I'm cruising or traveling internationally, I'm super relaxed. If it doesn't make it in my suitcase, Amazon Prime is just the best thing in the world when you're traveling. Sometimes I'm, on the plane and placing an order of the item I realize I forgot and sending it to the hotel. And because I travel frequently, it is what it is.
I have never done that before, but that is such a smart idea.
Oh my gosh. Computer cords, personal hygiene items. You can pretty much get anything with Amazon Prime.
Yeah. And I do that at home. That never occurred to me to just have something sent to my hotel versus like going and finding the drugstore myself.
I do it to the hotel all the time. Depending where I'm going, if I have a car, I'll be a Target ad for a minute. I'm a huge Target Carside fan too. So I'll place my order so I can pick up, beverages and snacks and all kinds of things and just take a 5-minute detour away from the airport on my way to a destination.
I love that. I like that efficiency a lot because I think it's not necessarily fun to like shop for toiletries on a trip. So
it's not. And I'll be honest,
that.
I travel pretty frequently. You'll generally find me on a plane going somewhere. I say I'm lucky. I travel often, but I vacation never. Because when I am going to these destinations, I am reviewing them and blogging them and things like that. But I am paying for these trips. They're paid for by the company. They are not gifted to us. And so, going into a hotel gift shop and buying a toiletry for 4 times the price kills me. So I try to, I can travel often because I'm efficient in what I do. I'm a huge credit card miles person. If it wasn't for my credit card points, some of these international flights might not be a possibility. So, I eke out every penny everywhere I can.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you can spend money on the trip as opposed to spend money on like unnecessary things.
Yes,
So I
most
love that.
definitely.
Well, you've kind of already done our third question, like as a bonus, but maybe you have another one. What's your number one travel tip?
I use Space Saver bags for my trip home. So when I pack my suitcase, my clothes are just in my suitcase with Space Saver bags on top. That means that I can put the clothing into the Space Saver bag, smush out all the extra air, and gain room in my suitcase for a souvenir without having to bring an extra empty bag along.
Oh,
so I can still do that one
tip.
piece of checked baggage and still get it all in there.
Nice. Okay, tell us details about these Space Saver bags because I feel like I've seen different styles. So what's your preference on these? What
Definitely not the ones that need a vacuum cleaner to seal.
Fair.
I'll probably give you all a visual you don't need. I never make the little snappy things that they come with work correctly. I fill the bag, I try and seal it, and then I lay down on top of it to push all the air out.
There you go.
It works well. It's not glamorous, but it does the job.
I mean, I feel like that's part of packing sometimes is contorting in weird ways to get stuff in your
I will
suitcase,
also say that I am lucky because I fly often. I'm a premier member with United, which means that I get 2 suitcases up to 75 pounds each. And to me, that's a challenge to see if I can actually, get all my weight that I'm entitled to.
So your goal is to get as close as possible
to that
150
as
pounds.
we can really stuff something else in there.
Oh my gosh, we are the opposite person, because my challenge with packing is like, ooh, let's see if, even though they give me that overhead compartment, I'm going to see if I can just fit it on the seat in front of me and like,
If I've
let's
got to
go
wait
real compact.
If I've got to wait at the baggage carousel, everything I want or might want is going to be in that bag. If I can make it in a carry-on only, that's fine. But once I'm standing there, I want all the conveniences.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. If you're doing it anyway, you might as well just
go big.
take
And
advantage.
so if I'm trying, it's often I'll do a trip to Walt Disney World and I'm there for 24 or 48 hours, 1 or 2 overnights. And so I do try to do just the carry-on if
Short
I'm
and
not going to be
sweet,
doing a lot of souvenirs. And that's where the Space Saver bags are also super helpful in squeezing it nice and small so that I can get it all into the carry-on.
That's awesome.
That's a great tip.
Man.
So Sandy, what is the trip that you're going to tell us about today? We're very excited.
I was very lucky pre-pandemic, thankfully, to do an Adventures by Disney Rhine River cruise during Oktoberfest. So all the winning
wow.
And it was my first river cruise. And I have to say, I fell in love. River cruising is a phenomenal experience. It's so different than ocean cruising. The ships are very small. You know, I'm used to when I sail with Disney, you've got hundreds of staterooms. When you're on a river cruise, depending on the ship, you've got 50 to 85 staterooms. You've got 3 to 5 decks. So you really get to know almost all the passengers on board because you're rotating through different things. For anybody who avoids ocean cruising because you're concerned about motion, river cruising, as its name implies, is on a river. So the motion is not there. And at all times, you can see land. There's a lot of parts of the trip where you actually can see land on both sides of the ship if you're up on the top deck. So, you know, you're super close. It's a very leisurely stroll down the river. And the nice thing, like anybody loves about cruising, you get to see so many places and switch countries and cities without having to keep repacking those suitcases.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's one of the huge advantages of cruising is, being able to unpack once.
Yes.
And not having to figure out your own, like, hotels or anything. Just having your bed right there, like, from that aspect, too, sounds really cool. Nice. I didn't even think about that with the motion sickness, but that's a really good point. I like that idea. That's cool. And you probably get some really good views, like you were saying.
Absolutely amazing. You know, just so much to see. It's also a calmer pace, a quieter pace. You know, it's not the big theater shows every night and the huge entertainment. There's some entertainment, but there's one lounge and one thing to do at night. So you can also just literally go up on deck and there's stuff to see. You know, if you're on an ocean cruise and you're up on deck at night, you're pretty much staring at the sky. That's it. When you're on a river cruise and you're sailing down and the lights of some of these cities are just gorgeous to watch as you sail through, or the ships all have special seating near the front so that when the ships are going through the locks, you can watch that whole experience, how the water level goes up and down and your ship going through. Just some neat things to see and do besides what you're doing in those ports every day.
That's really cool. So where did this trip start and end? And then what were kind of like, was it a stop every day?
It was a stop every day. It went from Basel, Switzerland to Amsterdam, Netherlands. And I will throw out that from New Jersey, you can't get directly to Basel. You have to change planes. So we flew into Munich. And if you're a big Disney fan, you know that one of the huge inspirations for Walt is right in Munich, Germany, is Van Neuschwanstein Castle. That is the castle that he saw that gave him that idea that his park should have castles. So I did arrive a day early. Again, I'm very thrifty. I looked at a car service to take me to the castle and it was outrageous. So I decided I would brave doing a rental car in a country where I can't read a single road sign and give it a try driving to the castle. we went up to the castle, we toured the castle, we stayed overnight, and then we officially started the next day. And a lot of people who do this cruise, who are big Disney fans, will add that day because, you're so close, you have to, get it in while you can.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't think I realized that's where his inspiration was for the castle. That's really cool. Nice.
And how similar is the actual castle to either the castle in any of the castles? Because there's a castle in each park, I think.
Every castle has a park. You're correct. Everyone has a slightly different castle done for a different princess. They're all done with those big turrets, though, and that's really you can see that inspiration here. And I think kind of like, I remember my first trip to Disneyland. I had been to Walt Disney World several times before Disneyland. And I will say that the castle out there is so tiny that you kind of have to be like right up on the castle to see it because it's not so large. Where in Florida, you can like see the castle as you're even getting close to Magic Kingdom. You don't have to be in the park to spot it. And that's how Van Neuschwanstein is. You're just driving down this little country road and you look up to the left and on this humongous hill is this massive castle, just this sight up in the sky that is just breathtaking. So it is really, really neat to see. Definitely a big check on my bucket list to have been there.
Oh, that's so cool.
That is very cool.
Okay, and then what stops did the cruise make?
So we were in Strasbourg, France, and we were in Mannheim, Germany, Rudolsheimer, Germany, Cologne, Germany, and then Amsterdam.
That's awesome.
It was incredible. Again, it was so nice not to have to deal with anything. It's one of the reasons I love traveling with Adventures by Disney. They do everything for you. In the case of the river cruise, there are a couple of excursions to choose from each day, but it's all included. They get the tickets for you. They do the transportation. They're guiding you through everything. So I do call it the ultimate mommy vacation. I can show up and I don't have to be the planner. It's all done for me. They're waiting with bottles of water as you're getting off the ship to go on to your excursions so that you don't have to remember to pack those things. They've got the big golf umbrellas in your stateroom so that if you get a rainy day, you're not drenched by the end. And they're forging these unique relationships to get you really into the heart of the city, into these unique places. Some of them are definitely the touristy things, but they're getting them with a unique flair. We went into a winery cave and we got to do wine sampling and see the vines that they pick from. And I will tell you, one of the greatest things about the wineries along this route, not only was the wine excellent and incredibly inexpensive, but if you purchased extra, they delivered it back to the ship for you. So you can place your order, pick it up later, and then open it while you're sailing one night. You're up on deck and now you've got this great local wine that you tasted earlier in the day.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So give us a picture of sort of like what a typical day on the cruise would be, right? Because I'm assuming you have to stop at some point if you're going to get out to see a city. Like what does the timing look like? What's an example of an excursion maybe that you did?
You bet. So different again than ocean cruising. The stops along river cruising are super close. So you don't need huge amounts of time to sail. You really got full days in your port. So we would have breakfast on the ship. Typically breakfast might be 8:30. And then we'd head for an excursion. Depending on the day, sometimes you would have a choice of this excursion is going to be all day. Or here's morning excursions and here's afternoon excursions. And you could pick two different ones, maybe come back to the ship for lunch. One of the great things about river cruising as well is there's always an option. They travel with bikes on board the ship. So if you don't want to do any of the excursions and you're feeling like maybe you just indulged a little too much in the sweets of the country, you can take a bike right along the water and into the cities and really get to see everything. So even though there's not 50 choices like you might find on an ocean cruise. There's always amazing things to see and do. And they try to really balance the sites in a way for people that want that active and adventure and people that aren't as adventurous. So for example, when we were in Strasbourg, you could do a canoe trip down the river to see all the houses and the boats and the cathedrals. Or you had an option of taking what's called a Badarama boat. So it's basically a glass top boat. It's an enclosed boat, but the whole top is glass so that you can see out.
Cool.
So we were all on the same river and all seeing the same sights. But that Badarama boat seats about 40 people, where the others were 2 people in a canoe and going along. So everybody got that experience, but got it in a way that was perfect for them.
Which one did you do?
You know, my daughter wasn't with me on this trip, so I did the Badarama boat, and I have to say, I wasn't sure that, again, I'm not super athletic, and I was nervous that I would, like, hold people back. And I really, when I saw them canoeing and I saw pictures from friends that I made on the ship, I was a little sad I didn't do the canoeing. But I think I'm going to have an opportunity to go back next year with another group, and so I'll switch it up and head for the canoes this time, be a little bit more adventurous.
I love that. That's so
being in Europe, there was also a lot of opportunities to tour cathedrals. And I always say to people, you know, that's a huge thing in Europe. And you don't have to be whatever denomination the cathedral is to have incredible appreciation for it.
Totally.
Yeah.
The architecture is just so stunning. And I don't think I've seen so much stained glass in my life, and just beautiful designs. I probably have 300 church pictures on my phone from everything we saw.
Did you have a cathedral that was your favorite out of the ones you saw? Or like the most unique or anything like that?
The one in Strasbourg was gorgeous. It was very heavy on the stained glass and just the way the light came in off of everything. It was beautiful. And then Cologne, Germany just had incredible detail inside and carvings in the pillars. And again, I could spend hours in these places that are not my denomination, but you have to appreciate the workmanship in them. It was amazing.
Yeah.
We also had the opportunity to do some cooking classes. So one day I learned how to make macaroons.
Oh, wow.
Oh, fun.
I won't say you all want to eat things that I cook, because cooking is definitely not my forte, but neat to learn and kind of get that idea. And then one of the things that came from France is what's called spaghetti ice cream. So we had a spaghetti ice cream demonstration one night, and I got to make spaghetti ice cream. And it's kind of what it sounds like. It reminds me of one of those kids' Play-Doh toys.
I was going to ask, is it like a Play-Doh Fun Factory?
It is. Where, you know, the ice cream comes out in like the hair strands that you would have if it was a Play-Doh Fun Factory. So your ice cream is like long pieces of spaghetti.
Oh, interesting.
That sounds really fun.
How does that affect the experience of eating it?
You know, it was kind of somewhere between a soft serve and a hard ice cream. So just kind of unique to play with and to eat, and flavor-wise, more creamy like you'd have in a soft serve, but to actually, you know, be in the country that it was made in initially was a neat thing.
So fun.
Another highlight for me is that we went to the Godiva Chocolate Museum.
Ooh.
Where is that at?
That's in Cologne, Germany. And I am known with
know.
It's an important one to know. You can also make your own custom chocolate bars there, where you pick the flavor of chocolate and then all different mix-ins to choose from. So really unique experience. And
what did you make?
I made a white chocolate with pistachios, hazelnut, toffee, and chocolate chips. Probably way too much stuff in it, but it was really good.
Wow. That does sound good.
Fun.
How long does that whole experience take?
So actually the ship does the chocolate bars for you, which is neat. So even people who didn't pick that excursion, they gave us a form in our room in the morning where we selected all the mix-ins for our chocolate. And then one of our adventure guides went and had the chocolate bars made for us, because they do take a couple of hours to have all the custom chocolate made and for it to harden.
Mm-hmm.
And then they distributed them on our pillows at night. But we were able to go to the chocolate museum and walk through and see all the displays and learn how chocolate was being made. And they actually give out samples of chocolate there. And
I was going to say, I hope they give out samples.
Yeah.
And then they have a cafe that has absolutely to die for hot chocolate. So we were probably in the museum for about 60 to 90 minutes. It's set right along the water. So even just our walk to get there was really beautiful.
Nice. They really do everything for you. They even order your custom chocolate bar for you.
They take very good care of you.
Wow.
And you mentioned you walked there. So I'm curious, a lot of, tours, you end up spending a lot of time on a bus. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like maybe that's not happening with this sort of a thing.
Again, I think it's because of the setup of river cruising. You might take a bus from the ship, which we did many times, into town, which could be 10 to 25 minutes, but then everything is super walkable.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you could walk from the ship, but if it's a 10 to 15 minute bus ride, why give up that time walking when the motor coach is waiting for you?
Sure.
Well, and if you have only a day in each location, then I think that kind of changes a perspective than if you're spending like a week in that one city. I think that's kind of a different approach to
most
how
definitely
you want to spend your time.
And as amazing as all of that was, I would say my two highlights were our second to last day. We got to visit the Van Gogh Museum. So we went through the museum, we got to see everything. And again, I was talking earlier about unique experiences. When we left the Van Gogh Museum, we crossed the street to a boat that was waiting for us. And when we boarded the boat, instead of being set up with normal, people sit here chairs, it had tables and chairs. And on each table were canvases. And then clipped to each canvas was a different Van Gogh picture. So as we floated down the river back towards where our ship was docked, we had a 45-minute art lesson where we painted a Van Gogh painting as we were sailing down the river, very over-the-top kind of experience. So one of my other favorite things from adventures is there's always a built-in souvenir. So I have that Van Gogh picture hanging. When we were in Italy, we made masks in the top Italian mask factory. We did our custom. So I have our Venetian masks hanging on my wall. And again, I'm not athletic. I'm not artistic. I put both of those disclaimers out there. But to have that item that's really, from that spot is amazing.
That's so special. Man, I want to plan for this Disney Adventures company.
It was amazing. But for me, I will say the highlight was our afternoon in Rudesheimer. They do what they call the Rhine Gorge tour. So you were asking earlier about our timing. That was our shortest day in a port. Because we got back to the ship, it was probably 2:30 or 3 o'clock. We needed to sail during the day that day because there's a section of the Rhine River. It's about a 3-hour sailing. And again, you can see the banks on the left and the right from that top deck of the ship. And as you sail up the gorge, they gave us a little map and they were making announcements. You will pass 30 castles on the riverbank that afternoon.
Wow.
So it was like, look left, look right, where's the next one? And they were one more beautiful than the other. So I had wine delivered from one of the wineries that morning. We had, our local wine up on deck as we were watching. I sent you a picture that'll probably appear. They came around with this big inflatable pretzel for all of us that said, Rhine River Cruise 2019. And they took pictures. With Adventures by Disney, they're also your photographers. So they take pictures all week long for you. And when you get home, I think I downloaded literally 900 photos that they took of our group during the week. So all the destinations we went to, they do group photos, they do individual, they do some scenic. So if you never wanted to take a single picture, you still had all of those memories. And for me, one of the other really neat things, my dad's family is actually from Germany, and we passed an area on the riverbank that they're from, and the timing worked out well enough that I was actually able to FaceTime my parents in. And so I stood at the railing with my dad, being able to see like the city in Germany going by in the background, because my dad doesn't fly, so he will never get to do a trip like this with me. But to kind of bring that in so that, not that video is the same as being there, but that's as close as I could get them. So to, again, in this age of technology, to be able to bring people in like that so that they felt like they were with me for a few minutes on the trip was really neat.
Oh, that's so special. I love that. I'm so curious. I mean, you've taken a lot of trips with Disney Adventures. How does it feel like Disney? I mean, okay, one thing I'm already hearing, actually, to answer part of my own question, is definitely the customer service, because I feel like the customer service is like above and beyond, and like such this high level, and things you wouldn't even think to ask for, and everything. Beyond that, are there characters on the boat? Is there like, are they playing Disney movies? Is there anything like related to?
So it really like depends. Service is definitely a high priority. When you do one of the land-based adventures, there's a maximum of 40 people with 2 adventure guides and then 1 step-on specialist. Because the river cruise has a lot more people, depending on the actual number of people on the ship, it's 6 to 8 adventure guides. And they are trained by Disney. And every one of them has American guides and then guides from where you are. So, for example, when I was in Italy, one of my guides lives in Italy. One of my guides lives in the U.S. But once a year, Disney brings all of these guides together for customer service training, for training on how to be aware. We were told, like, when you get to this city, this one is known for pickpockets, and this is what you want to watch for. So they're really watching for those things, and they are doing the service. And it's what we always talk about in Disney and their theme parks as well. It's the attention to detail. It's the plans that go into that. I say to people, could you do this trip on your own? Probably 90% of it. Some of it is exclusive access that they get that nobody else would get. But what I can tell you from the adventures that I've done and things that I've done on my own, what they are able to accomplish for you in a day would take you a day and a half to 2 on your own, because you would never have your timing right and your admission tickets and your front of the line and all of those things. One of the evenings, it was rare that we were off the ship in the evening, but there was one night where they rented out this cathedral and they brought in the top organist in the country who played for us. And we got to go up into the loft. We took turns. They sent like 1 row of people at a time upstairs to see him playing the pipe organ and actually see how it worked. And you couldn't replicate that experience if you tried. So it's about the realistic telling of the story. As far as characters, you're not going to find Mickey here unless you do their Southern California adventure or their China. The way that they do bring the characters in, they have what they call a pin of the day. So if you've been to a Disney park in the U.S., you're probably familiar with pin trading.
Yeah.
And on your Adventure by Disney, you get a pin for every single day. And it says the city you are in, and it does something that relates to that city. So, you might have the pipe organ one day, you might have a Van Gogh painting one day. But if you have the Van Gogh painting, Goofy is standing there painting the picture. So the character comes in on the pin. That's how they infuse Disney. Cute. One of the other things with the adventures is they have adult exclusive departures, but then they also have family adventures. On the family adventures, there's always what we call a junior adventurer night, which is our kids' night. They do a separate meal for the adults. If the adults want to have a family meal, that's certainly an option. But typically the kids by middle of the trip love the adventure guides. They're, big kids that play with them and keep them busy. And they do a movie night with the junior adventurers, and they do pizza and ice cream and a movie. And that movie is generally a Disney movie that they can somehow tie into the theme of where they're going. So like when I did the San Francisco tour, the movie that tour was Baymax, because if you know the movie Baymax, It's in the fictitious town of San Francisco, which is a play on San Francisco and Tokyo. So they try to add that little bit for our juniors.
Oh, fun. I love that.
It's really an amazing way to travel. Again, it's that detail that for a mom who's normally the one, my daughter teases me that I normally carry an apocalypse bag, which means that my backpack weighs about 40 pounds. It's got the ponchos, it's got the first aid kit, it's got everything you could need. I don't do that when we're traveling on Adventures by Disney. They take care of snacks and drinks for you. They will give you postcards to mail home. They have the first aid kit. They have all those little things, as well as I said, the cameras. So it really allows everybody in the family to vacation and really have an incredible experience.
That's very cool. So because I'm a logistics person and a cheapskate, are all like those things, all those cool things that you keep mentioning, right? Like that chocolate bar or like the excursions and things. How many of those are things that you have to like book ahead of time and gets factored into the cost? And how much is just part of being on an Adventures by Disney trip?
So an Adventures by Disney trip is not an inexpensive trip when you look at the price tag at first. However, you're going to pay for your airfare to get to the destination, and then Disney takes care of you. So when you land in the airport, they're meeting you to get you to your destination. They're covering every admission that I mentioned, every meal that I mentioned, the adventure guides, all of those things are included. Typically on an Adventures by Disney, you're going to pay for 3 things. You're going to pay for your airfare to get there. You're going to pay for gratuities for your guides, those adventure guides that I was talking about. But they tip the housekeeping, they tip the motor coach driver. You don't have those gratuities. And I'll give a little plug from me, if that's okay. If you book with our travel agency as a thank you for booking with us, we pay those guide gratuities for you. So it's same price as booking with Disney with that little extra savings. So it's a way to save on that. And then you're going to pay for souvenirs, but you're not paying for all those things that I described. That's all included. And I think that's the difference.
That's cool.
Sometimes, again, it's not an inexpensive price tag. I'm not going to lie about that, but it's an inclusive price tag. So because we're Disney only as an agency, when Adventures by Disney came out 15 years ago now, I was like, I don't do that. Like, I do theme parks. This isn't my jam. When they came out, I didn't even own a passport because you don't need one to cruise. I had never been to Europe. And I was like, it's not my thing. And then finally they're like, you're a top seller. It needs to become your thing. Figure it out. And so I am a logistics person. I'm a knowledge person. And I ordered all these different tour company brochures that I could get because for the most part, Adventures by Disney is not going anywhere that you can't go with somebody else. You can go with Perillo. You can go with Tauk Tours. You can go with all these other places. And it sounds the same because you're going to the same cities. And maybe you open the brochures and you compare them side by side, which is what I did when I agreed to start selling them. And there's things that look similar. They're not going to be 100% similar. But I say to people, look at them carefully because some of the other companies take you to the place, but they don't take you into the place. Well, I'm not going to stand outside the Coliseum. I want to be in the Coliseum.
Right.
So if I'm going with that other tour company, they allocate time to go into the Coliseum, but then I have to pay my admission and wait in line. With Adventures by Disney, my admission is included. And again, my time is accounted for. That's part of why they have 2 adventure guides and a step-on guide. If you need to wait online, they're waiting online for you. They're doing all those little detours. Our very first tour was in Italy. And I remember we had done a motor coach ride. We were going from one city to another. It was a land-based tour and we were in 3 different cities over 7 nights. And we stopped along the way in this absolutely adorable town of Orvieto. And the first thing when everyone got off the motor coaches, they pointed to where the restrooms were. But again, being an American and being, so old as I am, I rarely remember going to a paid toilet in this country. I mean, it was very little. But in Europe, it's very common. And
Sure.
so when you got to Oviedo, the adventure guides were standing outside of the restroom with the coin that you needed for the paid toilet because
Oh,
not
wow.
everybody had the coin for the paid toilet. But they didn't even ask. They just handed it to everybody. You know, when we got to the Trevi Fountain, they had the coin. And if you know the legend of the Trevi Fountain, you toss a coin in. And depending which way you're standing and which shoulder you toss it over, it has different meaning. I didn't know that before my tour. They tell you those kinds of things. So they're not doing something that you couldn't do. They're doing a lot of things that you might not think to do. And that's really what creates that amazing experience.
That's impressive.
That is impressive. It sounds cool. And now
You know, and
go.
again,
That
all of those
sounds like
details.
a really good, like...
When you're doing the land-based tour and you're moving to multiple hotels, you don't check in or out of a hotel. They do all the check-in and check-out for you.
Wow.
And they, you know, they're standing in the lobby handing you the room key. And they'll tell you, leave your luggage either just inside your door or just outside your door. We'll pick it up between 8:45 and 9. And they're dealing with getting my luggage to the next place. And,
Wow.
you know, when we do the family adventure, typically by day 2, my daughter's made friends with people on the adventure without a doubt. And it's funny because, you know, day 1, everyone gets on the motor coach and you see all the families sitting one behind the other. By day 3, all the kids have taken over the back of the motor coach. They've got the adventure guide playing games with them. The adults are all at the front talking. So for me, I'm a single mom. So to be able to travel in a country where I don't speak the language is always concerning to me. My daughter has the gift of foreign language. I speak what she calls Sandianese. It's all English with a funny accent and a prayer that somebody will understand what I need. So I'm not always comfortable traveling as 2 single women on our own, not speaking the language, not knowing where I'm going. So Adventures by Disney handles that for me. I'm with a group. They're making sure I'm where I need to be, getting to see all of those things. But I will say the other nice part is every tour has a little bit of on your own time. So if there's something you're desperate to do, you can do it. Nice. And quite frankly, while you've paid for everything, probably on every tour that I have been on, somebody has opted out of some activity. Just because they wanted to do something else, they wanted an afternoon off. I actually will say that I opted out of our second hike in Machu Picchu. So when we got to Machu Picchu, we hiked in the morning, we came out for lunch, and then we did a higher hike in the afternoon. My daughter went with the group. She was 18 at the time, so she hiked. And I will take the claim to fame that I sat at the base of Machu Picchu returning phone calls and emails for work because that was my work time that day. So, you know, you can opt out. The only thing that you have to do is move when the group moves. You know, if they're moving from Florence to Venice, you can't go, oh, I'll meet you later. Well, you could, but then you're on your own. But if you don't want to go to the cathedral or you don't like any of the choices, you can do something on your own. You can do the bikes if it's a river cruise. There's always options. And for the family tours, there's usually kind of like I was explaining with the canoes on this tour. There's an adventure aspect and then there's a non-adventure. So I've actually really come to love whitewater rafting. We've done a lot of rafting. We have pictures that you would think neither of us were still in the raft, but I swear the wave went over us. We were both still in there. But there was a younger child on one of our adventures and her mom was a little nervous. And so one river over, they had like a slow boat ride for them. So you're never pressured into doing things. And again, there's no mysteries on these itineraries as far as level of adventure. We talk with clients to make sure that they understand what they're choosing, because you don't want to pay for a tour where several of the things are just outside of your comfort zone. You know, unless you're me and you do them for your child and then you can't wait for that part of the trip to be over because you're terrified. But, you know, we all make our way through, and sometimes getting outside your comfort zone is a good thing.
Oh, totally. I think that's what travel can be about too. So that's good. Well, thank you so much for sharing about this trip with us and about Disney Adventures, which I've always kind of wondered, like, what is that? Why is Mickey taking people around the globe? And now we know. We have a couple follow-up questions. The first one is based on the title of our show, Take Me With You. If you could take us with you to just one thing on this river cruise you were on, what would it be and why?
So if it was one thing on the river cruise, it would definitely be the Rhine Gorge. As passive an activity as that was, it was just the most breathtaking afternoon. And it didn't matter the age or the sex of the person. Everybody was just enthralled with this 3-hour, what should be like a National Geographic movie that was literally unfolding before our eyes.
That's so
I
cool.
love that. We would be happy to join you, so thank you for the invitation.
Excellent. Come along.
And you've told us a little bit, but what's your next trip?
Depending again where the world is, I am headed to Wyoming in June. That's my next big trip. I'll be doing Yellowstone and Brooks Lake Lodge. And then in September, I'm doing one of my top bucket list trips. I'm doing another river cruise with Adventures by Disney, and this time I'm doing the Danube River, going from Prague to Budapest and spending an additional 2 days in Budapest when the cruise ends. The Adventures often has these add-on short escapes. So once my river cruise is over, the adventure guide will stay on land with me for those additional days as well.
What?
Oh, cool.
So
wow, it just like they keep one-upping themselves.
they really do. And again,
that.
Everybody's looking for something different. As of last week, they made announcements for 2022, which include that they are now on 7 continents. They are going to Antarctica next year. They have an Antarctica Patagonia trip.
Cheryl and I have talked about this.
I was going to say, it doesn't look like either of you have any interest in those destinations.
So here's the so Cheryl is a completist. So she wants to do all 7 continents.
And I'm quite the penguin lover, so there's that as well.
And I'm a science teacher, and so I love science and just the idea of Antarctica and being almost as far south as you can possibly be and seeing things you can't ever see. Like, it is on my list. I want to go. And hearing that like Adventures by Disney is going to do it, because it sounds like that'd be the best way to do it. I got to start saving. Cheryl, we got to start saving.
I will say, after that Rhine Gorge, my other probably favorite thing that I've seen on a trip was when we were in Norway and we went out into the fjords and I saw the puffins. I am now so fascinated by puffins. They were just the cutest little things you've ever seen. So that's another little steal my heart kind of minute.
Aww. And then do you have any travel questions for us?
So one of the things, obviously doing what I do, that I always love to hear is what is top on everybody's bucket list and why? Because I know mine constantly changes as I watch new specials and talk to new people. So where, besides Antarctica to hit your 7th continent, where are you looking at, Cheryl? What's high for you?
I've gone to 4 continents, so I have 3 left. So that's pretty high for me. Gosh, I mean, bucket list is so hard for me because I really do want to go everywhere. And so, I am more interested a lot of times in like cities and things like that. But then I married an introvert and he loves nature. And I mean, I love nature too. So now it also feels like, let's go to the most beautiful natural areas around the world as well. So we've been hitting more like national parks and stuff now, but oh boy, just everywhere is
Which are your remaining continents, obviously, besides hitting Antarctica? Where are you?
Let's see. I have been to North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. So I have South America, Australia, and Antarctica left. So, yes. And then I've been to like 35 states, so I wonder like, do I want to try to go for all 50? And I'm not as convinced about that one, but if I get close, I'll probably want to hit that one as well. Just because, like, if I get to like 45, be like, okay, come on, let's just like get all 50.
Well, it kind of depends what you have left, because I've looked at some of the ones that I've done. I actually recently did, my family laughed at me, I've just been picking cities that really kind of give you a break. And I went to Kansas City, which
Really?
I Googled, this is going to sound really silly, but I Googled for quaint cities in the U.S. and I fell in love with Kansas City after going there. Definitely somewhere that I'll be
I
back
love
to.
that.
And it's actually
Nice.
located in 2 states. So if you haven't been there, you can cross 2 states off in one trip.
I always
Oh,
love that. That's
interesting.
good.
Interesting.
Efficient
That's
use of
fun.
your travel time.
Exactly.
Ryan, what's on your bucket list?
I mean, I don't think in the same way as you, Cheryl, that it's like every place, because every place is not on my bucket list. But I think one that is definitely a place that I really, really want to go, but it's a big commitment. I want to go to New Zealand. So I have been to Australia, which was really cool. And I would go back to Australia, but New Zealand, again, just because it's kind of like what you were describing, Cheryl, that like just natural beauty is amazing there, but also they've got, especially the North Island, there's all sorts of really cool geologic sites. It's very active. They've got a lot of geothermal stuff. They've got the glowworm caves that I really want to see. So I think that's probably near the top on my list. Whether or not it's like the top, I don't know, because there are lots of places that I would like to be, but New Zealand is definitely up there.
I love that.
That's awesome. I have that same problem too. I keep rotating what makes it to the top.
Yes, it's a very hard decision.
I say, I was down to a top 3 that were all very close. Then I saw this new tour I wanted. I'm like, all right, I have a top 4 now after I get back from Budapest was definitely top of mind. So I'm excited to cross that one off. But.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah. Well, that was awesome. We're going to transition to the last segment of our podcast now called Wish You Were Here. During this section, each of the 3 of us is going to highlight a travel attraction, just kind of a quick little something that we've seen in our various travels that you might want to, take a quick little postcard of that's a really cool snapshot that says, oh, this thing was really cool. I wish you were here. So Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here?
I want to share about a unique dining experience, and that is eating in the restaurant that's in the Space Needle.
Oh yeah,
it's really fun. Sandy, have you been to Seattle?
I have not.
Okay, so the Space Needle, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with just like that building, but there's a restaurant up there, and the restaurant rotates one full rotation every hour. And so, I mean, definitely go on a clear day. But that's just fun. It's like it's really unique just being in this place that's like meant to be a really good viewpoint, and then all the tables just like have a view, and you like step on the part that's the conveyor belt, which is like that outer ring, and that's where all the tables are. And I mean, yeah, it's like not a cheap dining experience, but it's such a unique thing to do. And man, it was really fun. It was a number of years ago that I went, and I don't know if it's open. It's not open right now, but I'm sure it'll come back. And then, I mean, I haven't been to the new Space Needle observation deck, but I gotta go check that out sometime, because it used to be like almost like a fence. I mean, Ryan, how would you describe it? Like these bars or lines or things like that, and now they made it all glass, and so it's supposed to be a much better view now. But yeah, go check out that restaurant when you can.
When restaurants are open again. Yeah. Sandy, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here?
When we were in Geiranger, Norway, we rented this car called a Twizy. And it's a 2-person car. It has a windshield and a rear mirror. And it has doors, but the windows don't even have glass. It's open air. The person gets into the back seat first, because when you put the seat back, there's no leg room for them. Their legs go on the sides of the front seat. It's kind of like my daughter calls it the Space Mountain car. And it's this tiny little electric car that we took up this mountain with all these switchbacks. And we started obviously at the bottom of the mountain where you could see the waterfalls and all. Norway is just a gorgeous, gorgeous country. And it was actually pretty warm for Norway. I would say it was in the 60s. And
Oh.
as we made our way up the mountain, there were different stops. You could look down and see we were on a Disney cruise. You could look down and see the ship in port. But we did not actually make it all the way to the tip top of the mountain, because when we got about 3/4 of the way to the top, it was snowing. So with the no windows
fun.
on the car, no heat, no air, we kind of went, wow, this is really cool. Okay, it's time to turn around. So that Twizy car is something that we always talk about. And I actually sent it with a Wish You Were Here picture when we were traveling. It was definitely a highlight for us.
Oh, that's so
I
fun.
love that. Nice. That sounds so fun.
Yeah, I've never heard of a Twizy before. I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds really interesting.
TWIZZY.
Huh.
I'm checking out a website about it right now, and it looks gorgeous there. And
Probably it's a green and white little car.
Yeah.
Yep,
looks like a little toy.
Yep, it looks like a little toy. Yes, it does. Again, because it's one person behind the other, like the width of it, you're like, that can't be a car.
But that sounds nicer for switchbacks.
It was great for the switchbacks. Once I got, like the first 3, I was able to actually not have the buses behind me honking because I kind of got up to speed. It really at first felt like I was in like the Fred Flintstone mobile. I wasn't sure that it would actually keep up. So.
Oh, that's fun. That totally looks like a Space Mountain car. That's really fun. Ryan, what's your wish you were here?
I'm going to do a kind of really out of the way spot in just over the mountains in Washington State, over on the eastern side of the mountains, in a little town called Mary Hill. There is, it's very southern part of, like I said, just to the east of the Cascade Mountains. And there's kind of this ledge that overlooks the Columbia River. And so if you haven't seen, the Columbia River is actually really big. It's very wide, obviously very long. And so you kind of come through, if you're coming from the north down Highway 97, and you go through this huge wind farm where there's huge wind turbines going all over the place, and you kind of wind through, and then you come out and you can kind of see the river down below you and sort of the edges of the kind of the canyon there. And then right on the edge, there is a monument that is a life-size recreation of Stonehenge.
What?
Yeah. And not only, yep. And it's not what Stonehenge, and it's not what Stonehenge looks like today. It's a recreation of what they think Stonehenge looked like when it was originally constructed.
Oh, wow.
So it actually is fully circular with all of the stones and everything, all the capstones and everything all in it. And it's actually a World War I memorial. And so, yeah, there's a plaque there in recognition of, I think it was the local people who died in service in World War I. And so it's a memorial, but you can walk through it, you can touch, everything. You can kind of see what it's like. And then also the backdrop behind it is the Columbia River and the gorge. And I think you can see Mount Adams, and I think you can see Mount Hood in Oregon as well, because just right across there is Oregon. And it's a beautiful, beautiful spot. So if it's not really on the way to very many places, unfortunately, but it's a really, really cool spot. So if you're looking for a cool trip out to just kind of see things, or you're driving through Eastern Washington or Eastern Oregon or anything like that, it's a really, really cool spot to be.
I have to go check that. I thought you were going to be like, there's like a windmill museum or like something about wind power, or I just was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's pretty cool. I've been several times because I do a field trip that I take my students on. We go to Goldendale, which is about 20 minutes north of there. And they have a great observatory. I've talked about that before as a previous Wish You Were Here. But you can kind of pair those two together to go see for the night sky and do all that stuff, and like go down to the Stonehenge exhibit to watch sunset, and then go up to look through the telescope and
got a whole day there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Sandy, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. Please plug your business again.
Our agency is EZ Diz EZ. So if you're looking for us on the web, EZDISEZ.com. And I also am the weekly featured guest on a podcast called Let's Talk Diz, DIS. And it's all about planning your Disney vacation in 20 minutes or less a week. And we cover Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Adventures by Disney, Disney Cruise, Hawaii. So all the different Disney things you could look for to get a little bit of insight.
Ryan, that's what you needed last year.
It is what I needed last year.
That's great.
Thank you so much for having me. I love, obviously, to talk travel, share my stories, and hear everybody else's. So it was great.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, it was wonderful to hear. And I mean, kind of like Cheryl, I had heard of Adventures by Disney, but didn't really quite know what it was. So I think that was perfect to kind of just share what that experience is and what it looks like. So that's awesome. We would love it if you all would follow us on social media. We are at Timwy Podcast. That's TMWI for Take Me With You Podcast. We are on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. Send us suggestions of guests we should have on, topics we should cover, and the time that you thought you were going to die on your vacation.
You can also call us and leave us a voicemail at 406-763-8699, or if it's easier to remember, 406-POD-TIMWY. We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss any episodes, and share about this episode on your social media so more people can learn about Easy Diz and what Adventures by Disney is like.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the awesome artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
Sandy, once again, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It was awesome having you on the podcast.
Thank you. Great to meet you both.
Yeah.
That's all we got for this week. So until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above.